welcome to the Kitchen and Jorn show. I'm Jorn, that's Kitchen.
Kitchen!
And today, we're doing a little chatty video because I am going to be telling my coming out story in honor of National Coming Out Day, which is in October and will be shortly before or shortly after this video is released.
But either way, we are acknowledging
it. So people have asked over the years for me to share my coming out story, and I have actually told versions of this story before in videos. Generally speaking, I usually am pretty vague about it just because it's like personal and some parts of it were painful. You know, but I'm gonna be sort of talking about like coming out in the various like stages of my life.
So I think you wanted to start with your life as a teenager, correct?
Yeah, and I think that's the part of the story that like interests people the most, just because I think it's where there's a lot of similarities. But so yeah, basically, I am one of those people who realized really young that I was gay. Like I started having crushes when I was probably in preschool. I remember being confused by them to the point that I would like genuinely be angry at myself, being like, I don't understand, why am I so weird around this girl? Because I didn't know that it could be a crush, so I was like, what the f***? Like, also these were people that were usually like kind of friendly with me, so I was like, they already like me, why do I give a f***? Like, why am I so freaked out? The first time I ever thought to myself, what if I'm gay, was when I was 12. I was in the car with my mom. I like remember playing the what if game, which is like, what if I could fly? Just like stupid questions, and it was just like something you do when you're bored. And then the thought, what if I'm gay, popped into my head, and like a chill ran down my spine. And I felt truly this like sense of like pure terror. It was a very, like I felt it. Like it was just sort of like all of a sudden something shifted. You open the box, you can't put it back in. I grew up like in a fairly progressive area, honestly, but homophobia is like super present in our culture, it's super present in our schools, and all of that stuff. In ourselves, of course. So basically like realizing that I was gay or like having that thought at age 12 kicked off like 8 years of incredibly intense self-loathing and depression. Also trigger warning for suicidal ideation and stuff like that. I pretty much like kind of felt like I was living this double life where it was like I could be and try to perform normalcy and like go about high school and go about normal things, but it was like there was always this like incredible weight sitting on me that was like telling me like you don't have a future. But I was so depressed and so upset about it and so like in denial that I remember thinking to myself, I'm not gay. Even if I am gay, it doesn't matter because I'm never gonna live that way and I'd rather be dead. Which is like dark. The first person I ever dated, because I was in high school, was like whatever, was like a friend of mine who was great and is like a very awesome person. But I was still in so much denial that like anytime anything happened, I would be like, I'm not gay. And so I came out of high school having had like some gay experiences, but like not actually done any like healing. So it was just weird. Youth confusing. But it ended. College. Less confusing. I basically like came out at the start of sophomore year, started dating, got into like this very intense emotional thing where I was like, I'm in love. Then I got dumped. Then I cut all of my hair off. And I was like, I guess I'm out to everybody. I know it sounds really jarring that it's like, okay, like so all throughout high school you hated yourself and then you went to college and you were like, I'm good. And it's like, I wasn't really good. Like I was still dealing with like all of the low self-esteem and trying to like undo all of this like negative self-talk and also undo feeling grossed out by my sexuality, which was like 100% like internalized homophobia. Like I was just disgusted by gayness, which is funny because now I revel in it. College helps, or at least like leaving your hometown. It helped me. Meeting people that never knew me before helped because I kind of was able to like feel comfortable telling them that I was gay because I didn't feel like it changed anything or changed the way they saw me, which like it should change. They should be like, yeah, she's gay and I think she's hotter now. So fast forward. I lived throughout the rest of college where I'm like out, but I'm closeted with my parents because I was like, they're gonna have a reaction, but I knew they were still gonna love me. It was just like not easy to get it out. I ended up actually not telling them. They found out because when I started working at BuzzFeed, I was like told like, oh, make videos that represent your voice. And I was like, okay, I'll make a video about being gay. And I was like, oh, great, because this will force me to come out to my parents before the video goes online. I was like, this is gonna be perfect because it'll make it so that because I was like, it's been long enough. You're 22, you gotta tell them. Everybody else knows, it's not a secret. So I make this video. In it, like the opening line of the video is, I'm Jen, I'm here, I'm queer, and we're gonna talk about softball. Unfortunately, As the video got closer and closer to its release date, I did not get closer and closer to telling my parents anything. I was just like too anxious, too scared, couldn't do it. Every time I tried to do it, I would end up talking about like something else. Like I'd be like, did you know so many people have died in Yellowstone?
So many people have died from softball accidents?
It's crazy.
Speaking of softball.
I just was like, you know what? They don't understand the internet. They're not gonna see it. I'll do it when I'm ready. Whatever. So the video goes out, goes online. Nothing happens for like a month. And then one of my uncles saw it, and he wasn't trying to out me. He just like, I think he thought my parents knew. So he sent them the video because he was like, hey, I just saw this. Like, cool.
Oh, no.
I got a text from my mom that says, hi, Jennifer, can you call us later today? We want to chat. And I knew what it was about because I just knew. I was like, okay, they know. So I responded to my mom and I was like, no, I can't. I was like, I can't talk tonight. I have big plans. And those plans were to go over to my friend Jeff's house and get high. So I go to Jeff's house, his friend Michael is there. And I they're both straight, and I like tell them what's going on. I was like, I know my parents know, they want to talk to me. I just like can't, I'm so freaked out. And my friend Jeff, who I adore, who's really sweet, he's just so funny. He goes, well, do you want to like practice with me and Mike? Like we can like pretend to be your parents. And I was like, yes, oh my God, yes, that's great, perfect, yes. He's like, all right, we'll go in the bedroom, like you rehearse and we'll like, get into character. Eventually like, I was like, all right, I'm ready. So they come out of the rooms and they sit in front of me and I'm on the couch. And I look at Jeff and I go, Mom, and then I look at Mike and I go, Dad, I have something to tell you. And then Jeff goes, wait, I'm the mom? And I was like, as silly as it was, it actually like was kind of cathartic to do that with them. So then the next day I come home from work and then I called my parents. And the conversation, it was very good. It was like they were upset at the way they'd found out. They understood what had happened because I just explained, I was like, it's not really about you, it's about me. After my parents knew, it just was like, I didn't feel like I had to come out to everybody because I was like, you'll just find out.
So now we're transitioning to like kind of the
gender situation.
The third phase.
Present day. As like I got a little bit older, like I always noticed, like I do feel comfortable with like being like, yeah, I'm a woman, but like, not all that I am. Like non-binary feels like comfortable for me. The sexuality coming out part had been like so drawn out and like, 12 to 22 was 10 years of my life. It was nice to like realize how comfortable I am with myself and how like affirmed I feel with the people who love me that I was just able to be like, yeah, this is what's going on now, and it took like 2 seconds. One thing that I will say, because I was like very closeted, but also was like living half out a little bit, in late high school and college and stuff, I didn't always know where to turn to for advice. Back when I was deeply, deeply closeted back in high school, there were these gay websites that were like for culture and media, and they also had forums. There were like advice columns. Like I remember when I was 14, I wrote a fake letter, and it got published, which is really funny.
Is it still up?
I've never looked for it. It was like fan fiction. I was like, I think my brother's gay. How do I let him know that I still love him? And then like the advice was like, wow, what a sweet, considerate sibling you are. And I think I was just like, it was a roundabout way of like a closeted person trying to have connection with gay people without like it being real. There were resources for me, and I did take advantage of them. I wasn't always truthful. What I will say is people don't love it when they find out from an online video, but it does work. So I recommend it.
I would say, as someone who came out to their mom when they were 19 and then just like never came out to their dad until I was like, I have a wife now. Also, I'm 37.
It's hide and seek rules, but revised. It's come out wherever you are, but come out when you're ready.
Yeah.
Ready or not is removed from that. Anyway, we love you. I hope that everybody who's, queer, trans, all of this stuff, questioning, like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And I will say this, every time I was going through something really awful and I thought it would never end, it eventually did.
And look, now you're hot.
I was always hot. I was cute. I was a cutie.
Okay, I think the video's over.
All right, bye!